Hi everyone, I'm Jane, and today we're gonna paint super dynamic night sky with a moon. You guys have been asking me for a companion piece to the sun painting we did a few weeks ago, this one, and so the moon is what I came up with. I wanted to make sure that they had a really similar feel in the movement of the sky and the rays of the sun with the moon. And so it was a little bit challenging for me to figure out how to do that since the moon doesn't really have rays like the sun. And I didn't want to do just a solid background with a moon splatted in the middle. So I kind of took a little bit of inspiration from Van Gogh with the really moving, almost windy looking skies, and that's what we're gonna do today. Make sure you check out the video description below for a full list of materials, and let's get started. For today's painting, we're gonna use the following colors: titanium white, Mars black, phthalo blue, phthalo green, and Diox purple. But any colors that you choose can be used for this. So if you don't have these exact colors, that's okay. Just use whatever you have. The brushes we'll be using are a 1-inch flat brush, a large round natural hair bristle brush, and a 1/2-inch angle brush. And if you have an angle brush that's getting a little bit beat up and is having a hard time keeping a nice crisp edge like this one, that's okay to use in this painting. You don't absolutely have to have a sharp edge. You'll also need a pencil and something to trace your moon with. Now, this is the size of plate that I used to trace the sun in the other video, so I'm gonna use the exact same size of plate so that my moon is equal to the size of the sun. And I'm painting on a 12 by 24-inch canvas, which is the same size of canvas that we painted the sun on. Now, while I'm painting, if you happen to notice drips of water coming out of the bottom of my canvas, it's because when I took this canvas out of the package, it was super baggy and dented and really loose, so I stretched it back out. If you haven't seen my video on how to tighten up a loose canvas, you can do so now by clicking the white information icon up here, and you'll be magically transported to that video. All right, now to get started, we're gonna trace our moon. And in the sun video, I put the sun at the bottom here, just a little bit higher than halfway on the plate. So if my halfway mark on the plate is about here, I did it a little bit higher than that. So maybe almost a quarter hanging below the canvas. So I'm just gonna put it on there and with my pencil, just lightly trace an outline. So about like that. The next thing I'm gonna do is just give myself an idea of the direction the rays are following. So I'm gonna sketch some on, but if as I'm painting I decide I don't like where one is going, or I want another one, or I wanna change it slightly, it's totally fine. It will cover the pencil marks. So I'm gonna start with a ray coming off of the side here and bring it up around, kind of like that. That's gonna be the general shape that I give all of these rays. I'm gonna make another one coming off of the moon here. And maybe another one down here. Just kind of add them however you want them, wherever you want them. And then you can make some come off of one of the rays and down to meet up with another one. So just about like that. I may cover up some of these lines and change them totally once we start painting. Now we're gonna fill in the moon with just white paint to start. And I'm gonna use my angle brush, but if you're more comfortable using the large flat brush, you can do that. So I'm gonna wet it in the jar. and just wipe the excess off on the edge. I'm gonna load up with some white paint, and I'm gonna use the chisel edge of the brush with the point down to start here and just cut around this line first. I know it might seem kind of silly to paint this in white since the canvas is already white, but it will help give us a place for the paint colors to stick when we start layering the shadows and the craters on the moon. You don't have to worry too much about brush directionality here. Just get it filled in. Now I'm going to take more white and a hint of black, and I'm just going to brush on some shadows. We're going to do another layer to this, so don't worry about making these shadows perfect or look like the moon at all. Just get some darkness on there. Doesn't have to be even, doesn't have to cover the entire thing. In fact, I think I'm going to leave this edge white just because that's what I want to do right now. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is start putting some black paint along these lines. So I've cleaned off my angle brush and I'm gonna load up with some black paint. And I do have a little extra water in here. That helps my black paint flow a bit more. So sometimes you guys message me and you tell me that you have a really hard time. You can only go for an inch or two before the paint runs out. So if that happens, let me show you what to do. Dip your paintbrush in your water. And I don't know if you can see that, but there's a drip of water right there. And I've just put it in that black paint that I pulled out. And now I'm just gonna mix the paint in my brush and that little bit I pulled out in with the black. So it's not quite running, but it's quite a bit wetter than it was before. And that will help you take a crisp line even farther. So the tip of my angle brush is pointing down because I'm dragging it up. And I'm just gonna start outlining here. These lines don't have to look like anything in particular. You're gonna paint over almost all of it. But see how long I can take that black paint for before it starts to run out? And that's just because of the water. Okay, so I'm going to do that to all of these lines, and then we'll start filling them in. Now my brush is pointing up because I'm going to start over here and move down. Remember, you never want to crush the tip of the brush. You always want that tip to drag. Okay, so there's my rays. As you can tell, I didn't try and stay on my pencil lines everywhere. I let my brush strokes go off of them. My brush strokes are really messy. These are super imperfect brush strokes, and that's because I was absolutely not worried about this. You're not really gonna be able to see any of these brush strokes at all. So just give yourself that indication of where they are. Please don't obsess over these lines at all. All right, so I'm gonna zoom in close so you can see what I'm doing to fill these in. And I'm gonna start with this smaller one here. And I've got black, white, and my phthalo blue. So I'm gonna grab just a hint of black. See, not a lot, just a little on one side. And I'm gonna mix it with some phthalo. I'm not being real precise with this. And for each one, each ray that I do, even in the same color, my color mixture is probably going to be different. It's going to look totally different. Now I'm going to grab just about a pinpoint of white. Can you see how much white I grabbed on there? Just a tiny bit. And I'm going to mix that in there. And that's just to give it a little more opacity. Some of these colors are a little transparent and that white will just help. Now I'm going to use always the chisel edge of my brush for this part with the tip dragging. And I'm just going to start right here on the line, and I'm kind of putting a little bit of pressure and just making some dashes. My goal, my focus is to cover the canvas, get rid of all those white spots, and I'm just going to take it along this edge farthest from the moon. Mix up more paint as you need. This canvas is one of those kind of junky ones that has a little more of a tooth on it than I like, and that's why I'm having a harder time getting that to cover. Now I'm going to grab a little bit more white and mix it into that same mixture that I was using. And I'm going to start down here again and do the same thing. And you don't have to worry about your first color and this color blending in. Let it be really streaky. That's going to make your moonlight more dynamic and fun. I am being careful to go around the edge of the moon there. I don't want to take it into my moon at all. I'm really having a hard time getting that to cover. Sometimes when you buy canvases at the craft store during their supermassive sale, you get canvases that should only be sold at a supermassive sale, if you know what I mean. So can you kind of see what I've done there? You can go back afterwards and just touch up any colors that you want to. Make this really random. I just want to see on mine a little bit of a lighter color toward the moon and a little bit of a darker color away from it. So after you've got your first piece painted in, kind of look around and decide where you want to see that color again. And they can touch if you like. You could do another blue one right next to the blue one. If you keep the consistent, dark on this top edge, light on this bottom edge, then they'll never get lost in each other. And even if they do, that's okay. But I'm gonna decide I want my next blue one to be maybe right here actually. I didn't clean off my brush. I still have that mixture. I'm just gonna go do a little more blue-black. And so this mixture is gonna be a little bit different than my first one. So I'm putting a little more pressure on my brush so I'm getting a nice wide line. And I have to use a little extra water to get this canvas covered. And I'm starting right inside of that color that I just finished. I'm not starting outside of it. If you start outside of it, you'll have a hard line between the two colors. If you start inside of it, then they blend in a little bit easier. I'm gonna take quite a bit of white now. And I'm not even fully mixing it. Can you see that there's some streaks, there's some light, some dark? I like the way that looks, so I'm not mixing that fully. I I think I'm just gonna grab white now because I still have all those other colors in my brush. And here, just like when we use the flat brush on the background, and I tell you, the harder you push, the more color you're gonna lay down. The lighter your pressure, the more you're gonna blend them together. It's the exact same thing when you use the chisel edge. If you push and you put full pressure, you're gonna lay down quite a bit of paint. But if you just dust it like that, then you can blend colors together. So let me show you on the back of my plate here. So if I push here and here, and I have that hard line where the lighter color meets the darker color, if I just lightly dust over it, see, it softens that line there. I think I'm gonna do my next blue one here. I have quite the blob of paint there, so we'll scrape it off. And a little extra water just to help me cover this dumb canvas. So on this canvas, even though I'm working really hard to get all of those white spots covered, there's still some peeking through. So when we're done and this is dry, I'll show you how you can cover that. Because I've had people ask me before, you know, once their painting's dry and then they notice those, how they can get rid of them. And you can get rid of them without repainting it, and I will show you how. So notice all three of these blue spots, even though I used the same three colors, they almost look like different colors. And I really like that effect. If you don't like that effect and you really wanted it all to look like this, then just wash off your brush completely before you start each section. I'm gonna actually wash off my brush right now so that I can kind of go back and forth between the different mixtures, because I do want a little more of this darker mixture here and there. All right, so I'm gonna grab a little more black. I'm gonna mix it in a clean spot over here. Pinpoint of white. And I think I'll do this section. Notice that all of my brush strokes are following the line that's closest to them. That's the shape that they're following. So now that I'm getting down to this line that has a little bit of a different shape, my lines are swooping down to meet it a little bit more. Let me actually demonstrate for you on the back of my plate the exact brush stroke I'm doing, because I don't think I've really gone over that. So usually when we use this brush, I tell you control your pressure so that you get a line basically like that. But here, I want you to put full pressure on it when you're using it. So I am using the edge, but I'm putting a lot of pressure, and then I'm just kind of overlapping them like that. So if you go like this with light pressure, you're gonna have a hard time covering this. So don't be afraid, just put lots of pressure on there. Super heavy pressure right there. Heavy pressure there, heavy pressure, and right here where those two meet, super light pressure. To just get rid of that line a bit. Just dusting it right there. And notice I have so much black and blue on here that all I'm grabbing really is white because that black and blue is coming off with it. In fact, I'm gonna wipe a bit of that off. And see, even as I'm painting this part, I'm just not worried about what those black lines are doing at all. In some places I've gone over them completely into the next section, and I'm totally okay with that, so please don't spend too much time worrying about those black lines. All right, there's our blue. Now I'm gonna do either green or purple, probably whichever tube I end up grabbing first. And we'll do them in these little spots that we didn't do before. So kind of look at it and decide which color you wanna start with and how you wanna lay it out. Clean off your brush and then we'll get started on the other color. All right, so I decided to go with my phthalo green next. So we're gonna do the exact same thing. A little black, little green, and a pinpoint of white to start. You can alternate where your light and dark spots are if you like. I'm gonna keep mine all on the same side, but if you want to, every other color or even every other piece, reverse it, that would be totally up to you. Now, as I start adding the next colors in, I'll probably pay a little bit more attention to where the colors meet. Since with the blue, I got kind of messy with it and just let it streak outside. As I add the purple and green, I'll clean up those lines. And by cleaning up those lines, I mean I'll just run kind of smooth down where those two colors meet and then go break that line up inside. So rather than throwing all of this painting into time lapse, since you guys have seen what I'm doing here, let's talk about something that we have to talk about on my Facebook page all the time. as soon as the motorcycle goes by. All right. Now, several of you on my Facebook page have gotten the lecture from me. And I figured, since I was giving the lecture out regularly on my Facebook page, I would just give you guys the lecture here, and then I shouldn't have to give it anymore on my Facebook page. So the lecture is, whenever you post a painting to me or to anybody else, and you start out by saying, I messed up here, or this looks terrible, or this doesn't look like yours, it doesn't look like so-and-so's, whatever. When you start out by pointing out things you don't like or saying negative things about your painting, you make the viewer question whether or not they like it. If they liked it as soon as they saw it, and then you start pointing out things that you don't like or telling them that you don't like it, then it makes them question whether or not they should like it. And it gets them looking for the things, the imperfections that you may see. Never, ever start out with that. It's okay for you to look at your painting and think, oh, I really hate that part, or I really wish I would have done this instead of this, but it's not okay to share it with people and immediately start justifying it in case they don't like it. If they don't like it, that's up to them, not you. You just need to be proud of what you painted, and if you're gonna be proud enough to put it out there and show people, then you should be proud enough to stand behind it and say, yep, I painted that. Everybody starts somewhere, and painting is a set of skills that you learn. So if there's something you don't like about your painting, instead of pointing it out to other people, look at what you don't like and think about it. Why don't you like whatever it is? Is there something you could have done different? What would you do different next time to make that better? Those are the things that you should be looking at. But a lot of times it's happened where, I'll see somebody's painting and they haven't done any nasty talk. I'll see somebody's painting and I'll notice something about it that I really like. And, as soon as I say, oh, I really like how you did this, then they say, oh, that was a mistake, or that was an accident, or I really hate that part. Don't do that either. If somebody says they like something about your painting, even if it was a mistake or an accident or whatever, just say thank you. Nobody has the right to tell you that your painting is wrong or that something about it doesn't look good. So you don't have to justify anything about it. It's your painting, and it can look like whatever you want it to look like. See how I'm keeping those lines fairly crisp in between the two colors there? In fact, see, now I just did something on my painting because I was talking that I could very easily point out to other people and say, oh, this part was a mistake. But if I never tell anybody the mistake that I made, nobody's ever gonna notice it. In fact, do you even notice what it is that I did that I see as a mistake? I took my green in all of these areas. What I wanted to do was go green, leave this for the purple, green, and just kind of alternate it through there. But instead of, getting frustrated now and maybe painting over it or starting over, I'm just gonna go with it. And nobody will look at my painting and say, oh, you made a mistake here. So what I think I'm gonna do to remedy this is I'll do these two sections in purple and maybe this one. And then, no, I think I'm gonna do these three sections in purple right here. And then I'll alternate in here somehow. So I've got kind of a cooler side and a little bit of a warmer side. I'm gonna throw you into time lapse while I finish up my green here. All right, now we're just gonna add the purple, do the texture on our moon, and then I'll show you how to cover up these white spots in some of these areas. So I have my Diox purple, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing. A little bit of black, purple, pinpoint of white, and fill in the sections. I think here in this purple section, because the purple's darker than the other colors, you can see that it's not covering the canvas better. So I'll definitely focus on the purple section more when I'm showing you how to cover those little spots. I'm gonna take my brush, and it's pretty wet. There's quite a bit of water in here. And I'm gonna mix up a color that is at least kind of similar to this. It doesn't have to be real close. And I'm gonna use it really, really wet. So see, my paint is kind of running. So I've loaded up my brush with a color that's fairly similar. Let me just add a tiny bit more purple to it. And then I just grabbed another drip of water. And what I'm gonna do is right here, mix that water into the paint and wipe it off on the edge. I don't want very much paint on here. This brush is, see how much, there's next to no paint coming out of it now. That's what you want. Now I'm just gonna lightly smooth over the spots. And see, it just kind of tints them. So it's not really gonna change the color of the top layer of paint. It's just gonna get in there because the paint is really damp and it's gonna fill in those little spots. So I just keep grabbing these little bits that are running off here and just dabbing it into those white holes. There, and that covers them. If I go into the lighter area, then I would just mix up a slightly lighter color. This area right here that's quite dark, I grabbed another drip of water. I'm gonna grab a little hint of this solid purple, mix it in, and wipe it off again. And then just lightly smear over top. You do want to make sure that your first layer of paint is completely dry first, otherwise it will start to take that paint off. So maybe wait a day, at least a couple of hours before you do this. Since mine it hasn't been dry for that long, I am starting to lift some of the paint. But that's how you would do it if you have an issue like that. After you fill in all those spots, the next step is to remember what brand of canvas you bought and never buy it again. If you have to buy it again, then prepare it by painting it solid with white paint or whatever color of underpainting you're gonna do, but don't paint your image straight onto that canvas anymore. All right, now we're gonna add our texture to our moon. So I know I've complained about this canvas a lot today. I had to restretch it before I painted on it, and then I had a really hard time getting the color to stick to the canvas, and I told you not to buy crappy canvases. So I know I'm gonna get a lot of questions about what brand of canvas this is, and honestly, I'm not going to name names. Let's just say I bought this during a really epic sale that just happened. That happens at least once a year. So that might tell you. If you don't know, ask, somebody will tell you. All right, so I'm gonna take my large natural hair bristle brush, and I know that usually when I do kind of the blotting texture with this brush, I use this brush wet, but today I am gonna wet it down. So I wet this in my jar, and now I'm gonna take a paper towel and squeeze out as much moisture as I can. I just want this brush to have the smallest amount of moisture in it, but I don't want it wet. And I think I want to use one of these background colors in my moon. You can use 2 or 3 of them, whatever you want to use. I'm going to use my blue. So I'm going to grab some white and a hint of blue, about like that, and then a hint of black. And I think I will mix them here just a little bit. And I'm just gonna kind of scrub it into totally random shapes. Just kind of wherever you feel like you need a shadow. And then I'm gonna wipe it off on my paper towel again. I didn't clean it in the jar, I'm just wiping that extra paint off. And then I'm just gonna get white. Not a ton of white. And I'm gonna start by tapping out here and up into the color. Notice I'm not making circles. You don't have to make circles on your moon. It can be totally random. There's no brush stroke here. It's just like tapping. Super light pressure where I would just want to break up a line because I want to keep the shadow, and putting a little more pressure on it where I want to lay down more paint. So super light right there because I don't want to lose that shadow completely, and heavier there where I want to lay down more. And since I did this really quick so that black, blue, white mixture in the background is still wet, I'm dragging that color around a little bit, and that's adding some other shadows. And I chose blue because that's kind of the main color that I have going on in my swirls. Up here, I'm just getting a tiny bit at the very top of my brush of white. So around the edge, I'm just very gently gonna brush that color so it goes clear up to the edge, and then tap it out so I don't have a brush stroke line. And you don't have to do that bright white line all the way around your moon, because some of these craters might be wrapping around to the other side. Super light pressure there. See how I made a streak from moving it? So I'm just going to tap over top of that streak to get rid of it. And you're done with this part when your moon looks awesome. Doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there. Just keep doing it until you like it. And if you happen to cover too much of your shadow and highlight, of your shadow or your highlight, then just let it dry, paint over it, and do it again. You can do it as many times as you want. I think I'm almost done. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I'm just going to add a couple super bright spots. Also, I don't mean to say that all of the canvases from the place where I got this one are junk. That's where I buy a lot of my canvases because it's convenient and they have a good selection. This one was a different, you know how they have the different levels? This one was a different level than the ones that I typically buy. And so I will make sure not to buy this level again because I really don't like it. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that. So what do you think? Would you hang them together? You could even hang them sideways together with maybe 3 inches of space in between. They'd probably even look really fun if you hung one on opposite ends of the room facing each other. All right, there's your moon with a swirly dynamic sky to go with your sun painting. I hope that you guys had a great time painting this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your moon. Feel free to share them on my Facebook page. There's a link in the description below. And it would also be really cool if you would share how you hung it on the wall with your sun painting. Also, make sure that you follow me on Facebook and leave me a suggestion for other videos that you'd like to see. A lot of times I turn to my Facebook page to get ideas for what the next video is going to be. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.